2002 was a great year for gaming, and one of those games being Spider-Man the movie video game. It went off based off the movie as it's credited, but is it still worth playing? Many games come through and go through history, some even having an everlasting impact on our culture. While some may be considered award-winning, classic, terrible, etc., it can always change. I'm Cetra, and this is the series Does It Hold Up? A series where we analyze games and put them to the test to see if it still holds up its charm today, or if it's even worth your time now. Now, today we'll be focusing over Spider-Man the movie video game. Now, this is the year 2002. We just got released, I believe on May 3rd, 2002, was the release of the Spider-Man motion picture released by Sony Pictures Entertainment. And with the release of the movie, it was critically acclaimed. It was considered almost a classic, a hit automatically. So obviously, going based off the movie, they decided to release the game. And who doesn't like a Spider-Man game? Now, at this time, we've had Spider-Man games before. The best one by this time, before the release of April 16, 2002, was Spider-Man, the game for the PS1, Dreamcast, and I believe the N64, if I'm not mistaken. Now, that game was fun, it was amazing, but it was lackluster, as in the graphics. So, you know, we're just releasing a new generation, endless possibilities happen. So, with Spider-Man, we were given, well, Spider-Man. And that's one of the major problems with this game, first of all, the name. They were too lazy to put Spider-Man the movie video game. Now, I know it sounds like a long title, but when you were to go to someone at this time, people would actually get confused. When you would ask them, hey, you want to play Spider-Man? Well, which one? PS1 or, you know, PS2? So people were just always confused. So that was one of the major flaws with this. So, you know, but nonetheless, let's take a look at what the game was about. Spider-Man is a beat-em-up video game based upon the Marvel Comics character Spider-Man, and it's loosely based on the film Spider-Man, which I mentioned earlier. It was developed by Treyarch and released in 2002 for Microsoft's Windows and several other video game consoles. Official date release was April 16, 2002. It's apparently considered under the genre beat-em-up. I don't really see it that way until I look into some other information, but I'll get into that. Developers were Treyarch, Backbone Entertainment, and Grey Matter Interactive helped create the PC port. It was released on the PS2, Game Boy, Microsoft Xbox, Microsoft Windows, which is a PC, and the Game Boy Advance, which is a totally different game. Its publishers were Activision and supposedly Capcom. I'm a little confused on that, but probably find out one day. IGN gave it an 8.4 out of 10, so it did okay, you know. And for the most part, I think this game needs to be looked in a little bit more. At the time, people may have thought, man, this game is like fantastic, but in my opinion, I think maybe we just need to take a better look into it. Now, before I continue, one of the things you should know about how I'm doing this series is you got 4 categories. When video gaming, it's graphics, plot, design, controls. Now, the reason I put graphics and design 2 separate things is because the graphics can always be improved, and that's usually just a given by the next generation of console gaming. But the way you handle these graphics and put them into a video game is what can make or break your game. So that's why I'm putting them in different 4 categories. Now, starting with graphics, I think that the graphics were greatly improved. It looks a lot more fluent, and there's times where for some reason, I'm pretty sure I'm not, but it feels like I'm getting that 60 FPS. Now, obviously I'm not. Consoles weren't even able to handle this at the time, but it still feels like that, and it feels great. It feels smooth. There are times where like sometimes the frame drops dramatically, but overall the graphics were pretty nice, so I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Plot. With plot, the story. That's the main story. Now, the story is amazing. I feel like, you know, the story can be interpreted in many ways, but most overall, it's a very actionist story. Now, the movie has a bunch of parts in it. It has drama, a little bit of comedy, action. It's very filled with I guess you can say it's filled with a variety. There you go. And with this game, it's not really worked the same way, because you can't have stuff like that in a video game. It will bore people. So with endless action was the fun part. Now, I'll hand it to them. It was kind of slow. It wasn't that fat. It wasn't like, or not slow, I guess I should say, more of lackluster. Like, there wasn't enough. Like, for the time maybe it was, but the goal of this series is to put it to the test of today's standards, and it's not enough, so I give that a 9.5 out of 10. Design, I feel maybe at the time, at first I was thinking that, like, maybe for the time it was kind of good, but it's completely not. There are plenty other games that by this point they look beautiful and amazing. Donkey Kong, for example, on the Super Nintendo, this way before the PS2, they look critically acclaimed. Like, the 3D graphics on a 16-bit console looked amazing, and by the time we had them by the N64 era, dude, it was just perfect. And I feel like those graphics overpowered graphics, like, or the design, excuse me, of Spider-Man. And so I feel like, you know, I don't really like it too much. Like, the design of itself, like the color choice and everything looks good, but the rendering of it, and then like when they had facial features, I didn't really like it. I thought it was kind of weird, but you know, overall it was okay. The acting was good from Tobey Maguire, William Dafoe. The characters that played Mary Jane, I didn't really like, and the other characters were just there. They're not really there to really criticize. So overall, for design, I give it an 8 out of 10. Controls, oh gosh. Okay, look, the controls, I will admit, were never really good by this point with Spider-Man games. Well, I can't really say that. Fighting beat-em-up games were amazing. They were fun, they were fantastic, and amazing. But with this, I felt like every time I try to go forward, like, it would work. Like, going forward is easy. But usually with the game, if you're going forward, but while you're turning the camera, you know, your character slightly turns, it keeps turning, but while going forward and moving forward, which makes sense. But in this game, if you're going forward, but you turn the camera all the way backwards, a 180 degree, you're going forward, but your character's walking backwards. And that is something, like, you have to do a complete stop and then go forward, and then your character would turn around and go forward. And it was really bad, especially when it came to the combat. So the controls were really lackluster. So for this, I give it a 5 out of 10. Just not there. So overall, this game, it's a fun game to a certain extent if we're living in the times. But obviously, this series does not focus on that. It focuses on putting it through the standards of the test now. And a game is a game no matter what. That's how I'm going to look at this series. Now, obviously, in general and in the public eye, we're never going to see the game as, oh, game's a game. Like, this is a game from the 80s. So, you know, this is for the graphics for the time. And that's good. We should look at them. But this is one of those series where I thought maybe take a look in the different eyes and see it in the public view if this exact game was released almost today. So, going through my standards, we got a total of 32 over 50. And that being said, if it's ready for this generation, look, if you're a collector and you collect Spider-Man games, or you're just a die-hard Spider-Man fan like me, go buy it, have it. Don't expect too much out of it. The training is awesome. It's excessive training. Now, it's not forced on you, but like, if you want more out of the game, you have basic, advanced, and expert web slinging and so on with fighting and other controls and stuff like that. So that's one of the cool things, but it just doesn't feel right within the campaign. So overall, if it's, you know, for the general eye, if I had to do it with a 32 out of 50, it is not past the test, and therefore it does not hold up. Now, in the sense of collecting, like I mentioned, it's worth it. If you just wanted just to have it, go ahead. But if I recommend playing it with the friends or something, do not do it. Heck, I would probably recommend the original Spider-Man game for the PS2 or PS1, excuse me. So, you know, the game's awesome to a close extent, but it's just a collecting thing. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned because maybe we got a little bit more comic book movie action coming your way. So, see you tomorrow, guys. And as always, keep it real in the Cetra Nation.